There's this very specific universal feeling that hits you right before a massive breakthrough.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But the cruel irony is that it doesn't actually feel like a breakthrough at all. It feels exactly like total crushing defeat.
Yeah, it's that terrifying moment when you're just absolutely 100% ready to throw in the towel,
Yeah.
just walk away and quit forever.
Exactly. And today on this deep dive, we're actually looking at an ancient text that explains why that exact feeling is, well, it's actually the prerequisite for an awakening.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're ready to figure out how to break through your own solid walls, hit that subscribe button for the Simplified Awakening channel, drop a like on this video, and let's get into it.
Yeah, it is really great to be here. And just to set the stage for you listening, our mission today is to explore a single, profoundly layered narrative from the ancient Buddhist texts. It's known as the Vannupatha Jataka.
Right. Or the story of the sandy road
Yeah.
in English.
Exactly. The story of the sandy road. We're going to basically walk through this story and extract the core mechanics of perseverance. And I don't mean just like generic motivation.
Yeah, no motivational poster stuff.
Right. No,
Yeah.
we're talking about the actual psychological steps required to survive when you have quite literally hit rock bottom.
And before we get into the ancient sands, we really need to understand the framing device of this story, because it comes from the Jataka tales.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of us who, might not be super familiar, what exactly is a Jataka tale? Like, are we just talking about ancient fables with a nice little moral at the end?
Oh, no, they're much more complex than simple fables. A Jataka tale is essentially a story told by the Buddha to illustrate the invisible karmic ties between our past actions and our present struggles.
Okay, so connecting the past to the present.
Right. But we really shouldn't think of karma here as some sort of magical point system. Think of it more as deep-seated behavioral patterns echoing across time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so the Buddha uses these stories as psychological mirrors. He shows his followers how a tendency to fail, or maybe a sudden burst of resilience in their present life, is often an echo of a challenge they faced and maybe overcame in a past life.
Wow. So he's essentially showing them their core unchanging identity.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us perfectly to what's called the story of the present. So, to set the scene, we are in the ancient city of Savatthi.
Yeah.
And there is this brother, a monk, who has put himself through an absolute gauntlet.
A total grueling ordeal.
Yeah. He has spent 5 years preparing for full admission to the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
5 years of intense, grueling discipline. And then, to push himself even further, he retreats into a forest for the rainy season.
Right, just total isolation.
Exactly. He goes there to meditate in absolute crushing solitude. And he's doing everything right on paper. But after months of striving, just sitting there day after day in the silence, he gets nothing.
Yeah.
Not a single tiny glimmer of insight.
And the silence just gives him absolutely nothing back. And, I mean, we really have to acknowledge the immense psychological toll of that.
Oh, it would be devastating.
It is. This monk evaluates his own lack of progress, and he just falls into a really deep state of despair. In the context of the teachings, he concludes that there are basically 4 types of men when it comes to spiritual aptitude, and he must just belong to the absolute lowest tier.
He just assumes he's at the bottom.
Yeah, he decides that he fundamentally lacks the capacity for what they call the path or the fruit.
Let's actually pause there for a second. The path of the fruit.
Yeah.
For those of us who aren't Buddhist scholars, what does that actually mean in practical terms?
Good question. So the path refers to the active journey of spiritual practice, like the discipline, the meditation, the ethical living.
Right. The work.
Exactly, the work. And the fruit is the realization. It's the actual tangible result or enlightenment that comes from walking that path.
Okay, I see.
So this monk is essentially saying, I am fundamentally incapable of doing the work, and I am fundamentally incapable of reaping the reward. I am just broken.
Wow. He really believes he's doomed to futility in this lifetime.
He does.
So he experiences what modern psychology would call learned helplessness. He just gives up his solitary life in the forest, packs his bags, and he returns to the main monastery, Jetavana.
Just completely taps out.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, he doesn't go back to try a different meditation technique or find a new teacher. He goes back to just be a spectator.
Right.
He just wants to hang out with his friends, enjoy the fellowship, and basically just bask in the presence of the Buddha and the other, successful monks. He fully accepts defeat.
He really does.
And looking at this through a modern lens, I think anyone listening who has ever experienced severe burnout can completely relate to this.
Oh, absolutely. The mechanism is identical. I mean, think about what happens in the human brain when we apply sustained effort without getting any reward.
You just crash.
Right? Our dopamine systems just plummet. And dopamine isn't just about pleasure, it's the molecule of motivation.
Right, it's the drive.
Exactly. When you put years of your life into a career or a passion project or even a relationship and you see zero return on investment, your brain biologically wires you to stop trying. It's trying to conserve energy.
Yeah, but I kind of have to push back a little on the monk being in the wrong here. Because, I mean, isn't there a certain wisdom in knowing when to quit?
That's a fair point.
Right. Like we always hear about the sunk cost fallacy. Sometimes cutting your losses and realizing you just don't have the fundamental talent for something is like the smartest, most pragmatic thing you can do rather than just banging your head against a brick wall for another 5 years.
Yeah, and that is a highly rational perspective. And it's actually the exact tension that makes this narrative so compelling. Because the Buddha does not give this monk a generic motivational speech.
He doesn't just say, hang in there, buddy.
No, not at all. When the monk's friends bring him before the Buddha doesn't offer some platitude about trying harder. He performs basically a psychological intervention.
Oh, I love that.
He points out a glaring inconsistency in the monk's behavior. The Buddha looks at him and asks, how is it that now you are showing yourself to be a man lacking perseverance? Was it not you who were so stout-hearted in bygone days?
Wow. That is such a brilliant shift. The Buddha's telling this guy, like, this current state of surrender, this isn't you. Giving up is not your baseline.
Exactly. He totally bypasses the monk's current depression and appeals to a much deeper identity.
He holds up that karmic mirror you were talking about earlier.
He does. The Buddha reveals to everyone present that in a past life, this very same faint-hearted, completely exhausted monk was incredibly resolute.
Unstoppable, basically.
Yeah. In fact, the Buddha states that it was by this specific man's sheer, unbroken perseverance in a brutal, sandy desert that a massive caravan of 500 carts, along with all the men and oxen, were saved from certain death.
That's wild. And hearing this naturally pulls everyone, including us, into this story of the past, which is the core narrative of the Vannupatha Jataka.
All right.
So picture this setup for a second. Long before he attained enlightenment and became the Buddha, the Bodhisatta, which we can understand as someone who's on the trajectory toward becoming a Buddha, but in this life is just a highly capable human. He was born into a trader's family, and he grows up to become a seasoned caravan leader. And he is leading this enormous convoy of 500 carts across a 60-league sandy wilderness.
Which is just a massive undertaking.
It is. And the historical source material is incredibly vivid about the physical reality of this desert. The sand is so fine that if you close your fist, it just slips right through your fingers like water.
Wow.
Yeah. And by day, the sun beats down with such ferocity that the ground grows as hot as a bed of charcoal embers. You literally cannot step on it without burning your feet.
It's basically an absolute death zone. And just for context, a 60-league journey is roughly 180 miles.
That's huge.
It is a massive distance to cover with heavy carts drawn by oxen. So to survive this, the caravan employs a strict, non-negotiable strategy. They operate entirely in the dark. They only travel by night.
Because the day is just lethal.
Exactly. As soon as dawn breaks, they unyoke the oxen, they arrange their 500 carts into a defensive circle, a logger, and they spread this massive awning overhead, and they just spend the entire day sitting motionless in the shade.
And they have to carry everything with them.
Everything, every single resource they need, their own firewood, water, oil, and rice.
It's essentially like a deep space mission, or navigating the open ocean. You cannot survive for a second outside the life support system of the ship.
That naval analogy is actually explicit in the ancient text.
Wait, really?
Yeah, the desert is so vast, shifting, and featureless that terrestrial landmarks just don't exist. They have to rely on a specialist called a desert pilot.
A desert pilot, that's a cool title.
Right. And this navigator sits on a couch in the very front cart, staring up at the night sky, and directing their course entirely by the constellations.
So it is exactly the same skill set as a mariner voyaging over a trackless sea.
Precisely the same.
But the reality of ancient travel is that humans are deeply fallible, and cumulative exhaustion is very real.
Oh, yeah.
They've been doing this for days, and they are agonizingly close to the end. The leader calculates they have only about 7 miles left to go to clear the wilderness.
So close.
So close. He knows that tonight will be their final night in the desert, So to lighten the crushing load on the oxen for this final desperate sprint, he gives a really controversial order, he says. Throw away all the spare wood and water.
Wow.
Yeah. So they eat their supper, they toss their life-saving reserves into the sand, yoke the carts, and set out into the dark.
Which, seems reckless at first glance, but it's actually a standard efficiency calculation. The oxen are at the absolute limit of their endurance.
Right, they might just collapse.
Exactly. If they don't lighten the load, the animals die, and they don't make it anyway. So it's a calculated risk that relies entirely on flawless execution.
Flawless execution from an exhausted crew.
Right. And here is where the fatal human error occurs. The desert pilot, who has been awake for days navigating these treacherous nights, hits his absolute physical limit.
He just can't keep his eyes open.
No! He's sitting in the front cart, staring up at the stars, and his brain simply shuts down. He falls asleep.
Oh no. And without the pilot guiding them, the oxen slowly, imperceptibly just veer off course.
Yeah.
They end up turning completely around and retracing their steps in the pitch black. So all night long, the entire caravan of 500 carts is walking in a giant, exhausting circle.
Literal circle.
Yeah. Finally, dawn breaks. The pilot wakes up, looks at the position of the stars overhead in the growing light, and screams in panic, "Turn the carts round! Turn the carts round!"
But it's too late.
Way too late. The sun is already coming up. The ground is already heating up.
They frantically form the carts into a line to make their daytime camp, and as the light fills the desert, the horrifying reality sets in.
Oh, man. I can't even imagine.
The people of the caravan look at the dunes, they look at the discarded debris, and they cry out, "Why, this is where we camped yesterday."
That realization is just pure psychological terror. You walk all night, expended the very last of your energy, only to end up exactly where you started 24 hours ago.
Right back at square one.
But the stakes are infinitely higher now because they followed the leader's order. They threw away all their water and all their firewood.
Yes. They are literally stranded in an oven with zero resources.
The despair must have been total and immediate.
Oh, it was. Believing the journey is over and their fate is sealed, the people unyoke the carts, make their circular camp, spread the awning, and then they just mentally break.
They just give up.
Completely. The narrative states that each man flung himself down in despair beneath his own cart. They surrender completely. They are literally just lying in the dirt waiting for the heat to kill them.
Wow. It is the ultimate physical manifestation of what the monk in the present day is feeling mentally.
Yeah.
Utter, unshakable futility.
Yes. But the caravan leader, the Bodhisatta, he does not lie down under a cart.
He refuses to accept the visual evidence of defeat.
Exactly. He knows that if he gives in to the panic or the exhaustion, every single person in that caravan is going to perish.
Right.
So while it's still early morning and the ground is relatively cool, he begins to pace to and fro, intensely scanning the desolate landscape. And against all odds, he spots something anomalous.
What does he see?
A single isolated clump of kusa grass.
Ah. And the moment he sees this grass, his mind initiates this brilliant sequence of deductive reasoning. He doesn't look at it as a miracle. He looks at it as data.
Yes, purely analytical.
He realizes that grass is a biological organism. It requires moisture to survive. So even in this bed of hot charcoal sand, this specific patch of green has managed to take root and grow. Therefore, his conclusion is absolute. There must be a vein of water flowing somewhere deep beneath the surface. It is an incredible insight born completely out of desperate, intense observation.
It is. But insight without action is completely useless.
Right.
He immediately orders his men to bring a spade, and they start digging right at the spot where the grass is growing. And they have to dig deep. The text tells us they dig a massive hole 60 cubits down.
60 cubits. Just to put that ancient measurement in perspective for you listening, a cubit is roughly the length of a human forearm. So these dehydrated, totally exhausted men are digging a shaft nearly 90 feet deep into the desert floor.
90 feet down into the sand.
90 feet. You can imagine the physical toll, the blisters, the heat, the absolute terror driving every single shovelful of sand.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate disaster strikes. At the bottom of this massive 90-foot pit, the spade hits something hard. It doesn't hit wet sand. It strikes solid rock.
Yeah, right.
Yet, not just a loose stone, but a massive, impenetrable shelf of bedrock. The metallic clang of the spade hitting the stone echoes all the way up the shaft, and everyone topside hears it.
And the men completely lose heart all over again.
It's the final crushing blow. They've expended the very last reserves of their physical and emotional energy, and they've hit a literal wall.
They really have.
I want to look at this from the perspective of the men who gave up, because logic is entirely on their side here.
It really is.
If you've dug 90 feet down into a desert and you hit solid bedrock, every law of physics and probability dictates that it's over. The physical evidence is screaming at you to stop. How can anyone be expected to keep going when the foundation of the earth is blocking your path?
And that is the crux of the entire Jataka tale. It highlights the profound difference in the leader's approach compared to everyone else's.
Right.
The men in the caravan rely purely on what they can see and what they can feel. They see rock, they feel an impenetrable surface, and their brains tell them the mission has failed.
Which is what anyone would think.
Exactly. But the Bodhisatta realizes that visual evidence is sometimes a trap. He actually climbs down into that dark 90-foot hole. He stands on the solid rock. Then he stoops down, presses his ear directly against the cold stone, and he changes the sense he is using to evaluate the problem. He listens.
He shifts from looking at the obstacle to listening to it.
He listens deeply, and beneath the thick, imposing barrier of the rock, he hears it, the faint, unmistakable sound of water flowing.
Wow.
He doesn't rely solely on the obstacle he can see. He pays deep attention to the hidden currents moving beneath it. He realizes that the rock isn't the end of the journey. It's simply a dam holding back exactly what they need.
That is such a staggering metaphor for problem solving. The difference between staring at an obstacle and listening for the potential trapped underneath it.
Beautifully put.
So the leader knows the water is there. The deduction was totally correct.
Yeah.
But he needs someone to break the dam. He climbs out of the hole, looks at the exhausted men lying under the carts, and he calls over a serving lad.
Yes. And this detail is the absolute linchpin of the story. The Buddha reveals that this young serving lad in the ancient past is the exact same individual as the faint-hearted, burned-out monk sitting in front of him in the present.
Isn't it fascinating that the seasoned adults, the veteran travelers, had all given up, but the leader calls on a boy?
It really is.
It's almost like the adults possessed a kind of cynical experience. They had learned helplessness. They knew too much about the desert, so they knew they were dead.
Right.
But the lad had a sort of naive trust. He hasn't learned to be helpless yet.
And that trust is his greatest asset. The leader looks at this lad and outlines the stakes with absolute clarity. He says, "My boy, if you give in, we shall all perish. So take heart and courage."
No pressure, kid.
Right. He hands the boy a heavy iron sledgehammer and orders him to go down into that dark pit and strike the bedrock.
The pressure on this kid is just unimaginable. All the grown men have surrendered to the heat. But this lad, obedient to his master's bidding, is resolute where everyone else is fractured. He takes the heavy iron sledgehammer, descends 90 feet into the earth, stands on the bedrock, and with every ounce of his remaining strength, he brings the hammer down.
He strikes the rock, and the rock splits asunder.
So shatters.
The dam is broken. The water, which had been trapped and heavily pressurized beneath the stone shelf, comes rushing up into the shaft. The text describes it rising as high as a palm tree.
Oh my gosh.
It is a literal geyser of life-saving water erupting in the middle of a barren charcoal desert.
The aftermath is an explosion of joyous relief. You can literally feel the absolute elation through the ancient text.
Totally.
Everyone drinks their fill. They bathe in the cool water, washing off days of terror. And because they had thrown away their firewood, they become brilliantly resourceful.
Right, they had to improvise.
They chop up their spare axles and yokes, use that wood to build a fire, cook their rice, and feed their starving oxen. As soon as the sun sets, they hoist a flag by the side of the well to mark it for any future travelers who might face the same despair, and they travel on through the night.
And the perseverance pays off massively. They safely reach their destination, enter the markets, and barter their goods for twice and 4 times their original value.
Incredible.
They all return home safe and sound, living out their lives in prosperity. And all of it, every single life saved, happened because one young boy didn't stop when the shovel hit the rock.
So the Buddha finishes narrating this intense story of the past to the assembled monks in Savatthi, and he brings it all back to the present moment. He identifies the past lies to connect the ancient history to the people sitting right in front of him. He explains that the followers of the Buddha were the people of the caravan. He himself, the Buddha, was the wise caravan leader who listened to the water.
Right.
And that serving lad, the one who took the heavy hammer and shattered the rock when everyone else had quit, that was the faint-hearted, burned-out brother.
Exactly. And to solidify the lesson, the Buddha recites a stanza. Untiring, deep they dug that sandy track, till in the trodden way they water found. So let the sage, in perseverance strong, flag not nor tire, until his heart find peace.
until his heart find peace. The psychological impact of hearing this on the monk is instantaneous. It shatters his learned helplessness entirely.
It completely rewires his self-perception.
Yeah.
The monk realizes that the capacity to break through the hardest, most impenetrable obstacles isn't something he lacks. It's literally his true, tested nature across lifetimes.
Wow.
Hearing this story, recognizing himself as the boy with the hammer, allows the faint-hearted brother to immediately realize the four truths. Right there in the assembly, he attains arahatship.
And for those unfamiliar, arahatship is the ultimate state of spiritual enlightenment and total inner liberation from suffering.
Yes. He achieves the very thing he thought he was fundamentally incapable of. He breaks the rock in his own mind.
He broke the rock. And this right here is exactly why we do these deep dives, because this isn't just an ancient story about a caravan in a desert.
No, not at all.
This is a blueprint for the exact moment you are living in right now.
Yeah.
Yes, you listening to this video, we have all been stranded in that desert.
Well, absolutely.
You put in the years, you sacrifice, you dig the 90-foot hole, and then you hit the bedrock. You hit that solid, undeniable wall of failure or exhaustion or rejection. And logic tells you to quit.
Your friends lying under the carts tell you to quit.
Yeah. Your own dopamine-depleted brain tells you it is completely futile to swing the hammer again. But when you feel like you have dug as deep as you possibly can, when the physical evidence screams at you that it is over, remember the Vannupatha Jataka. Change the sense you're using to evaluate your problem. The water, the breakthrough, the awakening you have been desperate for might literally be just inches beneath that barrier.
That's right.
If this deep dive resonated with you, if it gave you that spark to pick up the sledgehammer just one more time, please make sure to subscribe to the Simplified Awakening channel right now. Drop a like on this video, and we want to hear from you.
Yeah, please share.
Leave a valuable comment down below about a time in your life when you hit rock bottom, almost gave up, but pushed through and found the water. Your story in the comments might be the exact flag in the desert someone else needs to see today. And humbly, we ask you to stay hooked, because we have another incredible story coming up on the channel very soon.
The mechanisms of human struggle are timeless. The deserts we cross might look different today, but the requirement for that blind, trusting perseverance remains exactly the same.
So, we leave you with a final thought to mull over today as you go back to your life. Whatever project, career path, or spiritual journey you are on right now, are you just staring at the impenetrable rock, accepting the visual evidence of your own defeat? Or are you taking a breath, stepping down into the dark, putting your ear to the cold stone, and listening for the water flowing just beneath it?